Do I call you Frank? Frankie, Mr. Avalon?
You can call me anything, but don't call me late for dinner.
Venus make her fair, a lovely girl with sunlight in her hair, and take the brightest stars up in the skies and place them in her eyes for me. Venus, goddess of love that you are, surely the things I ask can't be too great a task. Venus, if you do, I promise that I always will be true. I'll give her all the love I have to give, as long as we both shall live. Venus, goddess of love that you are, surely the things I ask can't be too great a task.
His name's Frankie Avalon.
You look like you were in phenomenal physical condition. How do you do that?
Well, that's very kind. I mean, that's a question that is asked of me many, many, many times. That's my dog, Sonny Boy. Come here, Sonny. Come on. There he is. Say hello to Sonny. Say hello to Dennis here. And I'll tell you, he follows me all over the place. And he's a Cavalier King Charles. And Sonny Boy was my nickname as a kid growing up in South Philadelphia.
Oh,
so when I got a hold of the Sonny Boy, he became part of my life. And I'll tell you, I can't go any place. He's there with me all the time.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Now, we were saying, what do I do? Okay. The secret is out. No, I'll tell you what. I got involved, Dennis, many, many years ago. I mean, taking care of yourself is one thing, but I got involved with herbs. I guess I'd say somewhere around 55 years ago. For some reason, I started to look into different vitamins and all this other stuff and drinks. And I got involved in where I was living at the time, which was close to North Hollywood. There was a place there, a storefront, and it was called Herb Products. And I wandered in there one day, and I got to meet the owner. His name was John, and he was amazing. He was so knowledgeable and talking about all these different herbs. And he said one thing to me that really I responded to. He said, all these prescription drugs that are on the market to handle whatever problems there are physically are made up of herbs, natural herbs.
Absolutely.
So that really interests me. So 55 years ago, he would make different formulas for me, and I started dealing with herbs. As a matter of fact, sometime before he even put them in the capsules, I had them in little bags that I would take. I was on the road, I was doing films, whatever. And of course, a lot of people thought I was carrying marijuana with me, but these were herbs.
Sure.
So actually, he started putting them into the capsules, and they were very important to me. And to this day, I'm an herbal man. And as a matter of fact, I'll be creating on my website, frankieavalon.com. People will see what kind of herbs and my regimen is in trying to look and stay as healthy as I can.
That is great. I say this without prejudice. You really look young. And that is
well. I'm not that old. I mean, I'm 81 years old. In today's age, but I am 81 years old, and I still go out there and perform and sing and do all this other stuff. So you got to keep active and keep being active. That's the most important thing. Keep moving.
I do believe that. Well, if we can take the time machine just a little ways back, you must have been very young when you performed on the Honeymooners.
Wow, was I young? I guess I must have been somewhere around 12, maybe, or 13.
Now, that was at the time a very famous TV show, and so you're a young guy and you're on it. Did you get a little bit of the showbiz bug there?
Well, here's what happened. In my neighborhood in South Philadelphia, there was a singer who was worldwide #1 song in the world, and his name was Al Martino. And he had a song called Here in My Heart. And he had a song which was #1 all over the world. And the neighborhood just admired him and supported him. And one of the fellows who lived in the row houses where we lived was giving him a party. So there was a crowd of people from the neighborhood, and I squeezed my way in with my trumpet in my case, and I knocked on the door, and this man opens the door. He says, "Can I help you?" I said, "My name is Frank Avalon. I play trumpet. Could I play for Mr. Martino?" And he said, "Come on in." He invited me in. The party was going on. I opened up my case. I took out the horn, and I started to play. Well, all of a sudden, the party kind of subdued, and everybody stopped to listen to me play. When I finished playing this song, I'll never forget, the song was called Tenderly. When I finished playing the song Tenderly, Al Martino looked at this man who owned the house and said, "Who is this kid?" He said, "I don't know. His name is Frank Avalon. He lives in the neighborhood." He said, "You know what? I've never heard a kid play this well. Who's his mother and father?" He said, "I don't know. Find out. Ask them if we could take him to New York City to an agency called GAC." So my mother and father gave him the permission to take me there. They drove me into New York City. I went into the agency. The agent was there. I opened my case again, took out the trumpet, and I played Tenderly. He was amazed by it. The agent said, "You know what? We represent Jackie Gleason. He lives at the Sheraton Hotel right across the street. Let me call, because they're having a meeting now with Jackie, his writers and producer. We go over there. It's a penthouse. So I meet the writer, I meet the director, but Jackie's not there that I could see. So I take out the horn and I start to play. As I'm playing, I look up with my eyes, and on the second level of the penthouse, I see the great one, Mr. Gleason. After I finished, there was applause, and Jackie said to his people, his staff, "I want him on in 2 weeks." So they wrote a show, and the first show I did with Gleason, I played a page. He asked for his trumpet because he loved trumpet. And I bring out and I say, "Can I play that?" And it was a whole kind of a routine. And that's where I played the song Tenderly.
I thought it would be nice if we opened the show with a little musical number. Would you bring out the trumpet, please, the page boy? Let's bring that right out here. Thank you very much. And now, friends.
Mr. Gleason,
What?
it must be very nice to play one of those things.
Oh, it sure is. Now, I'm going to
What
play...
are those buttons?
Well, if you push this button down, it's E flat, and you push this one down, it's B flat.
I had gotten so much mail, fan mail, from the networks that they said to this man, Silvio was his name, from the neighborhood, "Does he do anything else?" So he said, "Yeah, he tap dances." Well, I never tap danced in my life. There was a guy in the neighborhood, his name was Michael, and he started working with me. They gave me a month's time to put together a number, and I put a number together called Blue Skies. And I played Blue Skies, of course, and then I put the horn like this, like it was a cane or whatever.
Right,
and
right.
I tap danced to the song Blue Skies, and that was the Honeymooners segment. So that's my story of being a trumpet player.
That's a great start.
Yeah, you know why? Because I had a passion. And
Yes.
anybody who's watching and listening, whatever, if you have a passion for something, you got to go for it. And I put a lot of time in it. It just didn't happen. I mean, I told you I would play 4, 5, 6 hours a day. In those days, living in a row house, there were no showers. We had a tub. And if it was 100 degrees with 100 degrees humidity, I would just lay in the tub with my horn and play. That's how dedicated I was. Then I did have training. I went from this one teacher in the neighborhood that my father found out about a trumpet teacher who was the trumpeter for the Philadelphia Orchestra.
Okay.
So I started studying with him, and I would take my horn, I would take a trolley car, a subway, another trolley car, and walk to his house for a half-hour lesson. And then I would practice that lesson until my next lesson. And so I had good training.
How did you become a vocalist, and how did you find that, and how did it find you?
Well, that evolved after playing trumpet and more of a classical trumpet career. I was first trumpeter with the All City Philadelphia Orchestra. High school, I studied with a man by the name of Jay Speck. But, you know, to make some money and to play dates, I would play serenades, weddings, bar mitzvahs,
sure,
with a little group, you know.
right.
And finally, I heard of a group that was pretty popular in the area of Philly and New Jersey, and they were called Rocco and his Saints. And
Yes,
he was a
Rocco
piano
and the
player.
Saints.
And I heard that the trumpet player that he had before had quit the band, and he was looking for another trumpet player. And he
Right.
heard about me, being from Philadelphia, and he came to my house, made an appointment, came to my house, and I auditioned for him. He said, "I'd like to hire you for the band." I said, "Okay," and he paid me like $20, $25 a week to play with this band. And I started to gain momentum with the audience. People would say, "Let that kid play them," and I would sing a couple of songs. And all of a sudden they would say, "Can the kids sing some more songs?" So he would say to me, "You got to sing more songs." I said, "Rocco, I'm a trumpet player." He said, "I'll give you $5 extra a week." I said, "I'm a singer too now." $5 a week extra. So what had happened there, for the summer, we were playing a place called Bay Shores, down the shore in Summers Point, New Jersey. And we would play 5 sets a night, 45 on, 15 off. We lived on top of the club where we were playing. And it was a very hot band that we had. So there was a new record company called Chancellor Records out of Philadelphia that heard about our band. And they came in to see one of the performances, and they liked the band, like Rocco and the Saints. So they signed us to a contract. And the contract read, one side would be an instrumental called Jivin' with the Saints, and the other side will be a song called Cupid that Frankie will sing.
Oh.
So that started my singing career.
Don't wanna be a teacher's pet. Oh no, a teacher's pet won't do. Teacher's pet won't do. Just wanna get close as I can get. Pretty baby,
You know, my memory, what I recall when it started to really happen, I couldn't believe it. I mean, you know, all of a sudden I become a teen idol. Now,
Yeah.
I mean, I was always like well dressed as best as I could, and kind of a nice looking groomed kid,
Sure.
you know, but nobody was screaming when I was walking down the halls of my Bear Junior
People
High.
scream Frankie.
Right. No, not then. But then all of a sudden, fans and kids and this, and all of a sudden I become his teen idol. And I
Yes.
didn't really know how to handle it. It was kind of
Yes.
almost embarrassing, you know, where they would scream,
Yeah.
like, "Shh, don't do that," you know. I didn't know how to handle it. Now,
Sure.
because of all that happening, I became very busy. I started recording more, starting playing record hops, playing around the country, getting more popularity, and all of a sudden it evolved into a fan club that I was receiving 12,000 fan letters per week.
Yeah.
And then building and building and building, then all of a sudden hundreds of thousands, which became fans of mine. And I started selling lots of records. You mentioned Venus, the
Right.
#1 song, a song
Yes.
called Why, I'll Never Let You Go. Why? Because I Love You. Another #1 song.
Yes.
Eating Dinah, my first hit record. And then I have had about 39 on the chart records for this entire country and around the world. So that really
Okay.
started my singing career. What had happened
Okay.
was, because of the popularity, Dennis,
Yes.
that we were just talking about,
Sure.
Warner Brothers had called the record company and my manager at the time, we had a manager, and said, you know, we want this kid in a movie, because they figured if we
Yes.
put this boy in a film with a major star, that'll bring in a young element.
Yes.
So the picture that they assigned me to was called Guns of the Timberland,
All right.
starring Alan Ladd.
Oh.
And the producer was his first producer movie as a producer was Aaron Spelling.
Oh
So
my goodness.
now they fly me out to Hollywood. And
Right.
I'm ready to be an actor in a picture called Guns of the Timberland with a major star. So that's how I got into becoming an actor. So now because of that, the picture came out and John Wayne was preparing to do the Alamo. There was a young actor, a character for me to play was Smitty. And he called my agent. I'll never forget, I was playing the Steel Pier in Atlantic City. And I had gotten a call with a paid telephone. My agent was on the phone. He said, John Wayne wants you to be in his motion picture called The Alamo. It's a spectacular motion picture that is a $12 million picture then, which is unheard of.
Right,
So that was my second film with the great Duke, and an experience that I will never forget, but he was some guy. He was a man's man, and he was tough, and he was great. And he was warm and became very friendly.
And he must have liked or cared about you. I read one of the comments he made that said, I want him in every scene we can find for him because he's talented. And I just thought
that's really kind of him. And you know what? I respect what he did for me too, aside from because he was the director also.
Right.
He taught me really how to sit on a horse and ride. Because my character was, I was to take the message to General Sam Houston during the battle. And he said to me, when you sit, make sure that you sit straight up and feel like you have a hanger. So when you're riding, that's the way you ride. You don't bounce.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right.
He wanted to tell that story. And this was a passion for him. He put up a lot of his own money to make that film too. He said, well, I like the sound of the word. Well, it gives you a warm feeling, like when your baby takes his first step or your son starts to shave. That was the Duke.
Wonderful. Yeah. I don't want to rush forward, but it seems like you and Annette Funicello worked together in many movies.
We got an early start.
We're gonna have a ball,
We're gonna ride the surf.
and that ain't all. Nothing is greater than the sand serpents out there. Unrack our boards just as soon as we get there. Stack 'em in the sand while they're breaking just right. Yeah, we're surfing all day and we're swinging all night. Vacation is here, beach party tonight.
When I first met Annette, we were both on the same bill show in Hollywood. It was the Hollywood Bowl.
Okay.
She must have been about, it was a Dick Clark production. And she must have been about, 15, maybe 16. I was maybe 18. Yep. And we met. And, you know, she was a very popular gal in the Mickey Mouse Club.
Yes.
And the people that loved her, they adored her.
I loved her.
And, yeah, everybody. And we got to meet that day and doing the show. And I asked for her phone number to call her for a date. She said, you'll have to ask my mother. So I went to to Virginia, her mom, and she gave me her phone number. And as time went by, I called her and I said, could I have a date with you? She said, let me ask my mother. So again, she asked her mother. And I went to the Valley, is where she was living.
Sure.
And I knocked on the door, met the mom and dad again, and took her to a little pizza shop around the area there. We had a slice of pizza, some cold drinks, and that was my first date. We kept in contact with one another until, but that kind of faded away because I was on the road doing things and she was doing things, and so that went away. But then all of a sudden, I had signed a contract with American International Pictures.
Yes.
I made a couple of films for them, which were pretty successful at the box office. One called Panic in Year Zero with Ray Milland, who was an Academy Award winner actor. So because of that movie and a couple of other movies I did, I got friendly with Lou Russoff was his name, and he was a writer for American International. And he would come over to my house and I would cook some Italian things, food, and have conversation with him. He said, what kind of picture would you really like to do now? And I said, you know, Lou, if you could write something that has to do with with young people that have fun and enjoy one another and do activities together, almost like a club, you know?
Yeah.
So a month went by and he came to me with this script and he said, read this, see what you think. And the script was called Beach Party. So I read it and I loved it. It reminded me of the old Dead End Kids, only updated, and it had surfing in it, and it had beach, and who doesn't like that? So finally, I agreed to do the picture. I'm non-exclusive to them, but I agreed to do the picture. And I said, who's cast? Who are you casting as Dee Dee? And of course, Dee Dee was my first hit record. So they said, we're casting on a loan out from Disney Studios, Annette Funicello. I said, great. Wow. I like her. She's terrific. We talked a while for a few years. And so that was the beginning of our friendship, relationship, workingship together for many, many years.
Well, that's wonderful. The beach movies were delightful.
Yeah, they really were. You know what? They were so much fun. You know, Dennis, we did those pictures in 15 days. Now, can you imagine that? And the production value is tremendous in 15 days work. You know why? We had not only probably a great director, loved him, Bill Asher, who also created Bewitched, the television show, and he did all of our beach party pictures. Not only that, but we had a great cinematographer. The director of photography, his name was Floyd Crosby. Now, great story about Floyd Crosby. There was a picture where he did a director of photography called High Noon with Gary Cooper. That man there who was working on our beach party pictures did the same thing. He was the director of photography for High Noon and won the Academy Award.
Of course he did. Yep.
And later on would visit his son, who was part of Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
Oh, okay. Very well. Yeah.
You know?
You know, and that's very interesting what the mesh there is on creative lives, creativity generationally, and people supporting each other's art. I remember when I was reading a little bit of your bio, how you said, I really like singing. I really like acting, being in movies. I want to be versatile. And it's interesting how when there is creativity on the table, that all of these things kind of come together and reinforce each other.
Well, you know, Dennis, I had, a great career, still do. 3 years, whatever it is. But to be able to diversify, you know why? You just don't sink into one area. That can become boring. Yeah. I'm out on the road. I'm playing the Hollywood Bowl. I'm playing, and then all of a sudden I'm in front of a camera working with Ray Milland or Barbara Eden or whoever. Right. And then all of a sudden I'm at the Copacabana in New York City. So to have that variety and variation really keeps you up on your toes.
Are you doing nightclubs now?
Well, nightclubs are a thing of the past. Now it's theaters. It's concerts. It's outdoors.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a whole different thing. Nightclubs was a very personal 4 or 5. I mean, I was signed to the Sands Hotel when the Rat Pack was there.
Yes.
I was 21 years old.
Sure.
And I was signed for 5 years in Las Vegas at the Sands Hotel. That was a nightclub. Two shows a day, 7 days a week. You would do it for a month at a time. I got a great story to tell you about one incident that happened. I'm doing an engagement at the Sands Hotel. I'm doing 2 shows a night, and I'm also doing a motion picture. And I'm doing a film called Sergeant Deadhead, directed by, again, Norman Torog, another Academy Award director. So I'm doing that. Now, in the meantime, I'm after my second show, which I'm off stage about 1 o'clock in the morning. In those days, you had the DC-3 prop planes to take you back and forth. I'd have to wait for the first flight out to get to the studio to do my 8-hour acting, and then take the plane back And it was, now Sammy Davis Jr. comes to my show and he says to me, Frankie, what are you doing? So I give him that schedule. He says, hey, man, let me tell you something, man. He says, what you got to do? He says, when you finish your second show, instead of waiting for that plane to take you, here's what I've done. Get an ambulance. Have the ambulance waiting at the stage door. Get in the ambulance, lay on the cot, get 6-7 hours sleep. It takes you that long to drive. You go into the studio, you take a shower, you do your day's work. Now you get on the plane and come back. So that really saved me a lot of energy, yeah.
That's amazing. Wow. Oh, you're a family man. You got how many kids and how many grandkids?
My wife, Kay, we have 8 children, 4 boys, 4 girls, 10 grandchildren. And we have lots of Sunday dinners here. And this is like a Grand Central Station, who's in, who's out, who's here, who's that, who's swimming, who's we're a family. And every one of my children live within 10 miles of us.
Is this from the tradition of Italian family? Is this?
I think so. I think so. My mom and dad and my wife's mom and dad were all so close to one another that's how they were all brought up too. Yeah, I think tradition is very important. I think what you have gotten as a young person growing up, you carry on with you. And the thing that and with my family is respect your elders and never talk down or talk up to your elders, and have respect for people. That was a good lesson. And I think, and I know my children are all that way.
You did a cookbook, and do you still cook, or do you cook?
Yeah, I cook. I still cook. I had my Sunday dinners, and I make my own Philly steak sandwiches. And also, I have a food company, as a matter of fact, and I'm with QVC. So I go on periodically with different foods and desserts and cakes and things. And I also have a website, frankieavalon.com, which we'll be presenting our foods to. So yeah, I get involved with business. I do lots of things, Dennis.
And so right now, the real issues are about living well past 75, living well past 85. And it really does come down to fitness, mental activity, social connection, those kind of things. And it really sounds like you have lived that way.
Well, I feel as though I've lived 3, 4, 5 lives. I don't know. I mean, there's certain things that I said to my son Nick the other day. For some reason, I said, there are 3 nevers. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, here's how you got to look at the philosophy, I think, is never give up, never say never, and it's never too late. If you live with that philosophy, you always got a shot. You always have a chance because you're thinking ahead. Looking back is wonderful, which I do a lot. A lot of people like to feel and remember a lot of those memories, but always look forward too.
This has really been a privilege.
Dennis, thank you so much. I mean, please invite me again. I'd love to do it. There's so much more to talk about.
I think so.
I mean, it's 63 years of being fortunate and thankful to God and people who have been part of my life for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.